of the country's most prominent journalists have announced a new startup. Court TV founder Steven Brill and former New York Times editor Jill Abrahamson believe there's a market out there for long-form journalism, and they are going to find a way to make it work. It's yet another ambitious plan for the peripatetic Brill. When Steven Brill founded Court TV in 1991, it was a novel idea. Broadcast salacious trials from all over the country with rich legal analysis on the side.
Mr. Simpson, would you please stand and face the jury?
He hit it big with trials like O.J. and the Menendez brothers. Soon, though, Brill had another novel idea: produce a magazine that holds journalists accountable like everyone else. Brill's Content magazine launched in 1998.
It separates out reporters who do really good professional work versus the charlatans who have press cards the way you and I do.
Content folded after 3 years, and he went on to pioneer a few other projects. Now enter recently fired New York Times executive editor Jill Abrahamson.
What's next for me? I don't know. So I'm in exactly the same boat as many of you.
Well, now we know. Jill Abrahamson and Steven Brill are starting a yet-to-be-named journalism project, paying reporters $100,000 each for what they say will be one perfect whale of a story.
The model that we have come up with really doesn't exist anywhere else.
Abrahamson and Brill have worked together before. He first hired her when he launched The American Lawyer magazine. In fact, he's launched a lot of other stars, from Cynthia McFadden to Jim Cramer. Let's see if he can keep this project in the ascension. I have a tremendous respect for Steven Brill. I mean, I've always kind of followed him and watched his career, and I mean, he's got big ideas. That's when I appreciate him. Now, some of his ideas have worked, and some of them haven't. This project is a little bit like the one that we just discussed, First Look. I mean, because first of all, they need some big money to start this thing with, and it's not going to. I think Steven Brill's got some money, but it's not going to come from their pocket. So they need somebody who's backing the project. But what they basically need are people who are willing to subscribe. And they say that the thing is going to be about $2.99 a month, which is very reasonable. They're going to have, I don't know, maybe 12 or 13 reporters. Everybody comes up with one, and this is ambitious too. I think they said each reporter does one piece a month. That's a lot if you're writing something that's 15,000 words or more. So it's an ambitious undertaking.
It's a very ambitious undertaking, and they're right that there is a hunger for long-form narrative journalism. It's actually, weirdly enough, one of the things that's doing well online. But you look at some of the outlets for long-form narrative journalism, like the Atavist, there isn't much money involved in that. There's a real but limited audience for it. So when you talk about these $100,000 advances, it just seems like, you can't help but wish them well. Yeah. On the other hand, you kind of get the feeling that, at some point, everyone will have done a startup with Steven Brill, and here's another one. I wish them well, but I'm skeptical.
Well, I heard, or actually I didn't hear, I saw via Twitter, people were live tweeting it, when Jill Abrahamson appeared with David Carr recently at Boston University, and she made a comment that I thought was really bizarre, where she said that there was a dearth of good quality writing right now in the world of journalism. And I don't know what she's talking about, because I think there are a million different places to get really, really good writing. And I gotta wonder if this startup idea isn't informed by her belief, and maybe Steven Brill's belief, that there's not enough good stuff to go around, and we can afford to pay through the nose for it because no one else is doing it. Other people are doing it. So I think they might be kidding themselves.
Yeah, I think the real problem is there's a dearth of people willing to pay for it. I mean, look, the Toronto Star, which is a different kind of outlet, but just dropped its subscription model. They had like a metered subscription model, and they're now going back to dropping the paywall. I mean, everyone's experimenting with paywalls, and nobody has really figured out the right answer to getting people to pony up every month, even if they acknowledge that it's good stuff.
Well, the only place that I can think of that is doing a good job at that is the Wall Street Journal. That's a niche publication. So they're doing good writing. They put some of their good stuff behind that wall, and they have folks that every month don't want to take the risk that they're missing something in their particular area, so they want to make sure. For me, though, I think about how much, long-form stuff that I have enjoyed personally. it is really a kind of a quirky combination of what comes together to make you go all the way to the end, and to say, and next month there's going to be one that's just as good. You know, I mean, I can remember some of the great ones.
Me too. It depends on the topic.
It depends on the topic.
You know, Steven Brill just won this National Magazine Award. I don't know if you know about this. It was a 26,000-word piece on the healthcare system. Now, I can tell you right now, I could not have gotten through that. But I think his idea is kind of born of that he was acknowledged for having done this. And that's great for the magazine people who you know, we're such a reward-conscious industry anyway. That's great, but it doesn't necessarily mean there's an appetite.
Yeah, it's, I think, risky if you try to build a business model based on what you personally have experienced and feel good about doing. I mean,
and I think there is an
optimistic.
appetite, and there's plenty of it, and people are not paying for it. I didn't have to pay to read Ta-Nehisi Coates's essay on slavery reparations.
Yes,
you know.
right. Well, and I think there's some models out there that maybe you could explore. And this is like old-fashioned. Like I looked to This Week magazine. You know, okay, there's plenty of commentary out there. They've pulled it into a place where if you're really interested in seeing a broad swath, and a lot of people are, you can look there. And they're pretty smart about how they pull it. So I think there's ways to do it, but boy, you're going to have to go a minute, about 6 months or so, to find your legs, find the right writers, find the right pieces, all of that stuff.
There was once, and still is, I think, a belief that tablets were going to change the whole equation, that somehow this reading device was going to make it much more, much easier and much more attractive to read something long form, and that somehow people would be conditioned to pay for that where they had never been conditioned to click on things on web pages on the internet for free.
And the first part of that turned out to be right, and the second part of it turned out to be wrong.
Right.
The tablets had a drastic change on reading habits. It has fostered the rise of long form again, but people still aren't paying for it.
I will say there will be no shortage of people looking to get $100,000 for a story.
You among them.
Right? Yeah, I'm not going to.
So you don't have any Schadenfreude on this one, huh?
No, I just don't think it's going to work, and I think it sounds like we're all pretty skeptical.
I kept thinking, who makes the decision about whether it's $100,000?
I know, and I think every one of them won't be. So, some of the teams, multi-platform, maybe 100, and then it'll dip from there.